think about, am I on the pursuit of the goal, the purpose, the assignment that I have set out for me, or am I attached to only doing it when it's attached to this particular thing over here? Welcome to the podcast, Elevation Change, episode 4. Get ready to take your mind on a journey of transformation with the Elevation Change podcast. This podcast explores the peaks and valleys of personal growth and the pursuit of life with a purpose. So in this particular episode, I wanted to discuss with y'all just it's like the ugly side of influencing people, like the ugly side of leadership, and really the struggles that people have with being able to really influence other people. Like, and I know I'm not talking about influencer like on Instagram or Facebook or something like that, where, you're trying to get people to buy, some stuff you bought off Amazon or nothing like that. Like, I'm really talking about for those of us who put people in places that we're trying to better their life. We're trying to give them a greater purpose, like see their full potential, stuff like that, right? And so I'll just hop right into it, right? So the first thing is when we're talking about like the real ugly side of influence and leadership. And really it's not, let me say this, it's not the ugly side of it. It's just, I want to bring some things to light as far as what it takes to really influence people. And these are things that a lot of people don't realize have to happen to become a leader. And so like the first part I wanted to really jump into is that you have to get people to believe you have to get them to believe in what you believe. I think that's pretty simple, right? And that's what I want to lead off with, is because without followers, you are not a leader. Let's just be honest with you. Like, if you don't have anybody bought into your mission, your vision, whatever that is, like you're not a leader. I think some people do get it twisted where they say, hey, I have certain people who agree with what I agree with and whatnot. To a certain extent, you're still a leader in that sense. If people agree with your mission, your vision, whatever thought process you have, you're still kind of sort of leading them down a path. And so that's the biggest thing I want you to start to think about first is, can you get people to believe in what you believe, right? Like, even you listening to this right now, like, you have a belief that I can better myself, I can be a leader, I can, be someone who can touch someone else, right? Like, it's the slogan that I use at the end. We need to become people who someone else can lean on. Like, become the person that somebody else can lean on. And you, to a certain extent, have bought into that mission and that vision. But let's talk about one of the pieces for this, right? And so a lot of people bring this up to me and they'll talk about, well, I'm not necessarily a leader because I'm not the alpha of the room. I'm not the alpha male, the female. I'm not that person. And so for me, it's like, I disagree that you have to be the quote unquote alpha, right? Like, we can go into a different podcast and talk about what an alpha is and all that other stuff, but you don't have to be that to be a leader, right? You just have to be someone. And if you really think about different leaders throughout time, I can guarantee you that they also weren't the people that walked in a room and immediately everybody quote unquote deemed them the alpha, right? The thing is that they just got people to believe in what they believed in. That might be a cause, that might be a bad thing. There's plenty of leaders throughout time that have not used their influence in the right way, I would say. But I don't necessarily believe that you have to be an alpha. I just believe that you have to have a certain particular set of skills. I'll talk about that in a second. And I think the number one thing we have to start with is, do you have passion for something? And I always bring up passion first, is because typically when you have a mission, you have a vision, you're trying to get people to believe what you believe, is because you have a passion for it. And that's like this fire inside of you that just, I want people to see more of this, basically. I want people to adopt more of this. That's the passion behind it. So, and we talked about being an alpha. I think that will get you more followers, more people bought into what your cause is, more people paying attention to you. than it is just being the quote unquote alpha. Like I just hate to be honest with you, I hate the term. The second part to this is like, what's the vision that you have, right? So you want to get people to believe in what you to believe what you believe, but you have to have a vision. Like within your vision, you have to be able to paint a picture to people to say, hey, this is what life, this is what this particular task, this is what the mission should be, this is what the ultimate end goal should look like. You have to have the vision. And so when I sit down, I talk with a lot of people, they'll say, you know what, I really want to get into leadership. I really want to become someone. I want to do, specific things. And the first question I have is, okay, cool. What are you passionate about? What are you trying to do? And I'm met so often with people that will say, well, this is what I'm really passionate about, right? And then we really dive down into things, and these same folks will say, man, I'm really passionate about it. This is the thing that I want to do. This is my life's mission. And then they'll start to say, well, what if it doesn't work? Which is then the question I have for them. If you're passionate about it, if this is something that you truly said that I'm going to adopt, then I don't really understand the question of what if it doesn't work? See, like, I'm going to do this regardless, right? Like, I could have one of you listening to this podcast right now, looking at the video. If you're looking at the video side of this, I could have one person listening to this, and that's enough for me. Because I'm so passionate behind bettering people, getting them to a point to where other people, or they're in a position to where they can pour into other people, really elevating them to, certain heights in their life, having them realize some things within themselves. I'm so passionate about that. I really don't care about if I got 1 million listeners, if I have 600,000 people who've commented on a post, anything like that. I don't care about it. And the second part is, I told y'all about my vision just now, which was within my passion. Like, I really want everyone to be able to get in. And if you've ever seen my Monday videos, it's called Average Mindset Monday. And some people will be like, well, that's not very average of you when you talk about it. But that's the vision that I have. I want the average Joe, I want the average Jane, if you will, to be able to look at that video and say, I agree, I'm doing these things. But right now, we're not in a place of society where people are necessarily doing these things. So think about that for a second. What is your passion? What is your vision for what life should look like? What is the thing, right? Like, you may not have this worldly vision or this, overcoming the world passion or anything like that. But you may say, hey, you know what? I really like art. I know some people who's like, hey, I just want everybody to see my art. I know some people who's like, hey, shout out to Jay. He wants to help athletes in different areas of their life, whether it's mobility, whether it's, the functionality of their training. He doesn't necessarily say, hey, I'm just going to create the biggest, strongest athlete out there. He will create certain aspects to the athlete that will help them in other areas. So let's talk about the second part. And that's, you have to lead people to the conclusion that they want. Right? Like, so often we get into a position, we're trying to influence people, we're trying to get people to do particular things, but we're not leading them to the conclusion that they want. Right? Like, we will try to pose things on people, we'll try to push them to do certain things that we think that they should be doing. Now, we have knowledge. When you get in a certain position, you have things that you've been through, you have, scenarios that you've gone, you have experience to yourself. And that really pushes you to be able to help guide them to the conclusion that they want. Because I can't come up with the conclusion for you. I can help lead you to it. But I'm not going to say, and this happens with parents quite often, right? Like, I want you to graduate from high school. I want you to go to college. You're going to be a doctor, lawyer, some type of dentist, whatever. You're going to get one of these professional jobs, engineer, something like that. Because that's what makes all the money. But that might not be what I want to do. That might not be my calling. That's not my passion. That's not the vision that I want to pour into the world. And so we have to help people get to the conclusion that they want. Now, here's some things. How do we get people to get to that conclusion, right? Like, we have to walk them down a path of what it is and what it takes to get there. When you're influencing people, like, you can't sit there and say, this is the thing that you should do. Now, there are times, and let me step back for a second. There are times where you're going to have to say that is 100% not going to work because you've been there before, or that is a bad idea because the person has not fleshed it out. Like if you want to go sell carpet shavings to corporate businesses and commercial properties, I'm probably sure that that's not going to work. I don't have much experience in it, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be looking for whole pieces of carpet, things like that, not pieces of tile and stuff that they can piece together in this, 14,000 square foot facility. So that's what I wanted to get that out the way, because I know that some people is going to be like, well, my passion is my passion, and I know I'm going to get there somehow. Hey, look, kudos to you. But there are some things sometimes we're going to give you advice on as leaders, as people of influence, that we just know it's not going to work. Right? So once you get people to get to the conclusion that they want, I want you to think about, like, how do I give the person the credit? That's a very big missed opportunity, because once we get into a spot where we start to coach people, we'll start to train them and go down a certain path, and then we'll say, like, I did that. When in reality, they did it. I helped you get there, but ultimately you did the work. Like I know of plenty of people listening right now who are in positions of management, who are some type of leader for their team, whatever business that you're in. You may be the leader of your household, right? Or a leader of your household. And so often we hear, well, they just don't want to do it. Just can't get them to do it. I can't get them to understand. And that's the reason why we have to give people credit, is because it is so hard for somebody to make up their mind and say, I'm actually going to make this change. I'm actually going to embrace this particular thing. I'm actually going to do the thing that you're leading me down the path of doing. Now, part of that is we have to figure out, how do they want to gain the credit too, right? So we can go scream their praises from the mountaintops. We can go and post things on social media. We can do all those other things, but that might not get their fire started. That might not be the way that they want to get their praise. Some people just want a handshake. They want to acknowledge it, and they want to move on. Some people want you to go and sing their praises. Some people want you to post it everywhere possible. Some people just want to have a little intimate gathering, say, hey, I did it, let's move on. Some people don't even want to acknowledge it. They'll just move on from it. They don't even care if they actually get acknowledged for it. But I want you to start to think about how do we give that person the credit, and how do they want to receive the credit? See, next, I want you to think about this aspect to it. We have to position people to get the praise. Like, a lot of times we're in rooms with people that they can't necessarily get access to. We are meeting with VPs and other managers and directors and senior vice presidents and CEOs and all this other stuff. We're in certain rooms that these people can't get to. How do we position them to get the praise? How do we put their names in rooms? How do we get them onto people's radars, to where when we're looking for a particular person to fill a role, or we're looking for someone to take over something, that we have somebody in mind? I've elevated you to a certain level, and I've given you the spot to where that person can get the praise. All right. So the third thing I have for you, I want you to realize that consistency is greater than intensity. And see, like, it's just like working out. We can go to the gym for 9 hours today. You could be at the gym right now, work out for 3 hours, and never work out again for the next 3 weeks, and you will not see results. You can go on a diet today. You can eat the cleanest that you've ever eaten for one day, and it was the most immaculate diet you've ever had, and you probably won't see results. You can put intensity into certain things. You can have a meeting with someone. You can get a one-on-one with them. You can put them in a position to where you've dropped the greatest gems on them ever, and then there's no follow-up. And then that person never does what they were supposed to do. The person never does, like, creates the repetition and the habits of behaviors and putting themselves in the right position. Right? I call them our one and done people. Like, so often in leadership, we will look at an employee, we'll look at a person. You may look at your kid and say, I told you one time to do this. This is the right way to do it. And then just expect them to go. And then you never practice it. You never talk about it again. You never bring it to the forefront of anything. And you are relying on the intensity of the of the thing that I brought up to bring us through, when in reality it's the consistency behind what we do is how we get people to the next level. See, like I had a conversation with my mom one time, and I was telling her, I said, you can pour into individuals as much as you want, right? And we were talking about one particular person. You can pour into that person as much as you want. You can give them the game. You can tell them what needs to be done. And I said that person every single day has to go back into the environment that they came from, which is looking forward to Friday, which is just drinking beer, which is not necessarily doing anything beyond just going to work Monday through Friday, getting off, calling it a day, come back on Monday. We have to realize that consistency in this game is what's going to get us our results. I can't tell somebody one time. I can't expect them after hearing it for a second. I can't expect them to take the little nugget that I dropped. Now, some people do it, but I can't just expect you to hear it one time and then all of a sudden you're the master at it. Consistency is the key. See, the other part is like we try to assert like the titles to stuff, right? Like we try to assert, man, I got a degree. Like I have a title. My title says senior whatever. Like those paper leaders, right? Like I talked to y'all about football before. Like you got your paper captain that the coach said, hey, they have good character and that type of stuff, but they hadn't really done nothing. But they got the title, and now they want to bark orders. They want to tell you what to do, all that type of stuff, right? But I want you to think about the consistency in what they've done. And I'm not saying character's bad, but when I'm looking for somebody to lead me down the right path, I want to know whether you done it or not. Have you overcome some stuff? Like I'm not gonna sit in front of this camera right now talking to you and I've not done anything. See, like even when I'm training people how to speak, when I'm training them how to convey a particular message, like one of the number one things that really like even speakers do when I'm on stage and I'm talking to a group of people is you can tell people who have not gotten over what the issue is that they're talking about. Like we watch movies, and imagine watching a movie where, you know, the story starts. Imagine an action movie. The story starts, and then the protagonist and the antagonist come up. They fight each other, and then the movie ends, and we don't actually know what happened. And then they're like, "Thank you for watching." Not trying to watch that movie. But what we will watch a movie for is that this is what happened. This was the protagonist, the antagonist. This is the issue that they ran into. You know, the protagonist, main character had to overcome some particular things in their life. They had to realize some stuff. They had to really dig deep within themselves. They overcome the issue that was happening in the movie, and then the ending happens and it's a happy ending. That's the movies we want to watch. So I want you to think about that for a second, but there's consistency throughout those entire things that I'm saying, right? Like we didn't just get a title and now all of a sudden we have influence. We didn't just say it one time, now all of a sudden we have influence. We are doing particular things every single day to get us to that point. We have overcome some things because every single day we fought to get better at it. We fought to get over it. We fought to get to the position that we're in. We weren't just handed to, it didn't just get handed to us. We understand that there's a level of sweat equity that we put into this. And so here's like something I want to, and it was a really good story that my friend was telling me about. And he was talking to me, for those of you who I have a dog, right? Like he's like part hound dog or whatnot. And so he was telling me the story and he was like, man, I feel like things line up for you. And he said, I want you to think about your dog. And I was like, well, what about him? So he says, your dog is meant for he's a treeing hound, which basically means that he will run a squirrel, something up a tree, and he'll point at it, lets me know that it's there. It's quite funny because you can see him naturally get into that, and he's like, hey, I'm just letting you know there's something here. But he was like, the thing is that on hound dogs, they have a white tip to their tail. And so then he told me, he said, it's crazy that you found a dog like that because I adopted him. And I wasn't really sure where he was going with it. But then he brought it around town for me. Like he really hit this home for me. And I said, you know what? That sounds about right. He was like, just like your dog, they have a white tail white tip on the tail. It lets the master know. It lets the owner know where the dog is. It leads them. If there's tall grass, you can see the tip of the tail and you can follow the tail to wherever you're supposed to go. And he said that's just like you. And so he was like, it's just like you, because every time you get around someone, every time you talk to them, every time you have an interaction with someone, it's like you're the white tail for them and you lead them down the path that they should go. He was like, if you really think about it, he was like, you may not have a tail yourself, but he was like, as you walk, as you talk, as you interact with people, as you touch different lives, he was like, you are no different than your dog, where when the grass is tall and you can't see, or there's something in a tree that needs to be, noted, there's something that needs to be seen, you need to lead them to a particular part. He was like, you're the white tail for them and you're going to get them to the part to where they need to be. And I just thought that was powerful. And within that story, I started to think about what gets me to that point. I'm always going to give y'all things that you can pay attention to in your life, that where you can build up this particular type of skill set to yourself. And so for me, like the first thing I listen at is to be able to listen to people. Like so often we are listening to respond. I mean, like really listen to them, like really get into their mindset, their mind frame of why do they want to do what they want to do? What is their goal? What are they telling you? See, a lot of times people will tell us particular things. Well, they haven't even said a word. Can you read body language? Can you really listen to the moment that person's in? So the second part is that you have to have integrity, right? And so here's the part that I'm talking about integrity. I'm not talking about necessarily doing, and I had an old coach who used to say this all the time. Integrity is when you do what you were supposed to do, even though they turned the lights off. If somebody flicked the lights off in the room, were you still going to do the same thing that you did that you were going to do anyway? Or would you have deviated and maybe got relaxed, maybe not performed the action, whatever it was? So you have to have the integrity. See, the thing is people want them to follow them, but they don't have any integrity. They don't have like that. They don't have that dog in them. They basically to say like, this is what I'm going to do every single day. I talk to you about consistency. If you are consistently going in the right direction 80% of the time, it's almost like if you can hit that 80% mark, because we all gonna mess up sometimes. If you can hit that mark, people can then see you and say, you know what? This person does the right thing most of the time. I want to be like them. I want to listen to them. They have my best intentions in mind. And so then the next part is, and this kind of goes with integrity, is I want you to be authentic. Because there's so often it's like we're trying to emulate somebody else. We're trying to talk like somebody else. We're trying to do something like somebody else. We dress, all that other stuff. There's a stat that I read the other day that said basically only 1 in 4 people after the age of 30 actually make decisions for themselves. Outside of that, what happens is we look at certain things on social media, say that's what I want, and then go do that thing. And it's like the shiny object syndrome. I just want you to be the best version of yourself. So the next thing is like, I need you to do the thing. I need you to do what you said you were going to do. Right? There's so often that we can talk the talk, we can walk and we don't walk the walk, I guess you should say. And then we just talking and we're saying, yep, this is the right thing to do. You done read all the books. You read every single one of the books and you know how to talk a good game. But then when it's time to actually do it, you can't. And you saying like, in theory, these are the things you should be doing with your life, and you've not done it. You're a public success, private failure. So after that, I want you to think about this part too, right? Like I told you to put certain people in rooms that they can't necessarily be in right now. And that part is you have to be able to amplify voices. When you amplify voices, that means that you are pulling people up with you, even if they're across from you. Because so here's my thing. I think you should always have people in your life where they are on the same level as you. You have people that are above the level and you're trying to reach that. And you have people that you can go back and help pull to the level that you're at right now. So can you amplify voices? And that means on every single level. And even some of my peers, even people doing the same thing that I'm doing, I will refer them out to someone. I will put them in a position to say, hey, look, you're better for this job than I am. Amplify those voices for people. If you are in a room where they may not be able to obtain those particular people in the room, speak on behalf of them. Put it in their ear. Plant a seed. So here's the next one. And this one's near and dear to me because y'all probably heard me say this before if you've been rocking with me for a while. Be attentive to yourself. So I need you to be attentive to yourself. That way you can be attentive to other people. See, like if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people to the highest level. And again, we talk about this grind culture where everybody is always on go mode. I don't get any sleep. I'm stressed out. I don't take care of myself. I don't eat healthy food. I don't put, there's no self-help to you, but you're worried about helping other people. I need you to be attentive to yourself. That way you can be attentive to other people at the highest level. So here's the next one. It's kind of funny, but you need to have relevant skills. So like as the times change, I was listening to a show, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, although I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan, the Pittsburgh Steelers coach was basically saying he always has to adapt himself to get to where he may necessarily have to get, because he understands that times change. The kids change, the people that he deals with change, the players change, the staff change, and you have to have relevant skills to be able to talk the language just like them. We can't be talking from your generation necessarily. I can't even just necessarily talk from a younger generation. I have to be able to have relevant skills that are portrayed in the right way to even people that are older than myself, younger than myself, the same age as me. And so then the final piece of this is I just want you to focus on what matters. See, so often we get caught up in that title with the influencer, with the person that, is going to lead you to the promised land. But that's not really the thing that matters. That's not really the piece that should be the number one skill set for us. That's not the number one thing that we have to worry about. We have to focus on what matters for that person. And in doing so, you're going to push people in the right direction. But so often we focus on what matters to us and what happens for us and what's going to benefit us. I need you to focus on what matters for them. So those have been your skills. And as I wrap up this podcast, again, as always, share it with somebody. Let somebody know that they need to know this information. Leave me a comment. Give me the 5-star review. That's going to push us up in the rankings on the podcast. Download it for sure. Replay it. But again, as always, I give you this information because I want you to become someone that someone else can lean on, that someone else can trust, that someone else can count on. And you'll be able to pour into your family, your friends, your job, everybody that you run across. And so with that being said, this is episode 4 of the Elevation Change podcast, and we'll see you next week.